morning and good afternoon. My name is Joanna, and the window next to me is Paul. We are the MC of the online forum today. It gives us great pleasure and honor to welcome you all again to the Global Forum on the role of education in supporting students, exploring future pathways. In this Global Forum series, we are honored to have invited a panel of international expert speakers from the UK, Australia, and Hong Kong to discuss and share ideas about the role of higher education in supporting graduates of the future. The Global Forum series comprises 3 forums, which will explore innovative ways to prepare graduates of the future through applied research, practice, and supporting strategies. We had our first forum last month where we had Dr. Doc Ko from Nottingham Trent University and Professor John Burgess from Torrens University, Australia, to share with us key research strategy and practice in supporting graduates in the UK and Asia Pacific region. Today is the second forum, and we will have the third and last forum of the series in June. In today's forum, we will focus on experience and practice sharing around pedagogies and working with students, exploring how we can integrate career readiness into students' curriculum and prepare them technically and also mentally for the diverse job market after graduating. Over 100 delegates from around the world have registered for today's forum, and we are very excited to meet all of you online who are professionals, educators, and students from different parts of the world. Thank you all for making your time in your busy schedules to join us here today, and a very warm welcome to you all.
As a way to express our gratitude and appreciation for our speakers' generous support, may I now invite Dr. Larry Cheng, Associate Director of Hong Kong Metropolitan University, Lee Ka Sing School of Professional and Continuing Education, to present certificates of appreciation to our honorable speakers. May I first invite Dr. Cheng to present a certificate of appreciation to Ms. Cassie White, Employability Manager, Employability Services, Nottingham Trent University, UK. Would Dr. Cheng and Ms. White please look at the camera while we take a screenshot? Thank you. Next, may Dr. Cheng please present a certificate of appreciation to Ms. Carla Campbell, Curriculum Content Manager, Employability Services, Nottingham Trent University, UK. Please smile at the camera. Thank you. Next, may Dr. Cheng please present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Ian Wilson, Senior Lecturer, Department of Psychology, Nottingham Trent University, UK. Please smile at the camera. Thank you. Next, may Dr. Cheng please present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Lindsay Pang, Associate Professor of Practice, Department of Counseling and Psychology, Hong Kong Shu Yin University. Please smile at the camera. Thank you. Would Dr. Cheng and Dr. Pang please stay? To mark this memorable event, we'll take a virtual group photo together. May we also invite Ms. Cassie White, Ms. Carla Campbell, Dr. Ian Wilson to join this virtual group photo taking. Now, will everyone please position yourself squarely in the frame and look directly at the camera for a few seconds. Ready? 1, 2, and 3, smile. That's perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, I'm sure everyone is excited and looking forward to learn from our distinguished speakers. So on behalf of the organizing committee, let me first invite our keynote speakers of the first presentation, Ms. Cassie White, Employability Manager, Employability Services, Nottingham Trent University, and Ms. Carla Campbell, Curriculum Content Manager, Employability Services, Nottingham Trent University. Ms. Cassie White is the School Employability Manager for Animal, Rural, and Environmental Sciences at Nottingham Trent University, NTU, in the UK. In this role, Cassie supports academic colleagues across the school with the integration of learning to support employability within the curriculum at undergraduate and postgraduate level. In addition to this role, Cassie acts as the module lead for the Diploma and Certificate in Professional Practice Awards and helps to co-deliver on employability learning content across the curriculum. Cassie also directly oversees the work of a small team tasked with developing NTU's institutional offer in terms of work integrated learning projects with students. Cassie is an accredited strengths practitioner and enjoys supporting and encouraging students to recognize their own values and qualities when reflecting on their future career opportunities. Ms. Carla Campbell is Curriculum Content Manager within Employability Services at NTU. Carla is a qualified career professional with over 14 years experience working in higher education, further education, and business outplacement support. In her work at NTU, Carla currently leads in the design and delivery of career development learning with a focus on embedding employability into the curriculum across all courses. Most recently, Carla worked with Dr. Doug Cole, Associate Director Academic, Employability Services of NTU, to create Developing with NTU Framework, a new student-facing and research-informed piece of work that acts as scaffolding for learning across all courses and subject areas. Carla is currently in the process of mapping this to employability delivery and an approach to curriculum planning. So with a big round of applause, let's invite Ms. Cassie White and Ms. Carla Campbell to present on career development, learning, and employability in practice. Examples from Nottingham Trent University. Ms. White and Ms. Campbell, please.
Thank you very much. Hopefully that slide's just working. Just want to sense check before I start. I think it is. So thank you. And on behalf both myself and Carla are absolutely delighted to be presenting today as part of the online global forum. Heartfelt thank you to Hong Kong Metropolitan University for that very warm welcome. So as mentioned, I work as School Employability Manager. My colleague Carla is the Employability Team's Curriculum Content Manager at NTU. In the next 20 minutes, we hope to share our journey of embedding career development learning and employability at NTU. We're going to start this presentation with a quick strategic scene setting, which will hopefully give you an overview of the setup, the structure at NTU, but it will also outline the key strategic drivers and the influences of the university, which will in turn help to explain the journey that we're currently on and the approach that we have taken. So our aim today is to give you an insight into our current practice, the way that we collaboratively work with our academic colleagues and students at NTU. So Nottingham Trent University, as a brief overview, is one of the largest, most influential higher education institutes in UK with over 40,000 students and staff. We span 5 university sites. Now, NTU was the first university in the UK to sign up to the government's social mobility pledge, demonstrating a commitment to improving the prospects of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And a quarter of NTU's students come from households with a combined income of £15,000 or less. So as such, our university strategy echoes and complements our standing within the HEI sector. I'm going to hand across to Carla now.
Thank you, Cassie. So in terms of employability services and the way that we operate within NTU, we have over 160 staff working across 3 teams that are linked to our key stakeholders. Those stakeholders are our student development team, working directly with students and academic teams to support that academic journey, working in that curriculum space to support and design CDL. We have our employer engagement team who are working with employers. This includes placements and work-life experience. Again, these sit within the curriculum. We have our academic facing team who work with our academic schools at a strategic level, supporting the course and the curriculum in terms of their development. We are a central service supporting 9 academic schools. We have school links and local teams working to support that school level priorities, that essentially they are contextualizing the NTU strategy at a local level for our academic schools. Next slide, please, Cassie.
I think I've moved it on, Carla. I don't know if it's working your end.
Oh, I can still see, but I'll move on to the next one. So employability services provides an extensive offer to our students, graduate, employers and the academy through the adoption of a more collaborative approach with each of our stakeholder groups. We can collectively have a direct and positive impact on the results of our graduate outcome survey and our students' future success. Learning for employability is at the heart of our students' success, and we at NTU have a shared responsibility to help students build and grow through their course and through all aspects of their NTU life. The employability services provides essential support role in this respect, delivering an extensive range of activities within and outside of the curriculum in partnership with our academic schools. As we become an integrated part of the learning and teaching ecosystem here at NTU, we work towards a truly embedded approach. At NTU, there is the expectation that it is a shared responsibility between academic colleagues and employability services to design and deliver appropriate support, access to opportunities, and timely information through the student journey. To help us bring this to life, we operationalise school-level plans as part of our annual planning cycle, working in partnership with schools to look at how we can add value to the work that they're doing. These partnership plans enable the wider employability services team to plan and implement how we can support our students within the curriculum space and also the positioning of our wider service. To represent this is our employability services vision and mission statement that we work towards. This is shared with all of our academic partners in the work and the collaborative work that we do with those to support our students. So today, what we're going to do is give you examples of how we operationalise this. So Cassie is going to provide an overview of the key drivers behind our positioning. Over to you, Cassie.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Carla. So one of the key drivers was something happened in 2016 for us, and that was the curriculum refresh framework that was launched by the university. This was an agreement that all of our courses should align to a curriculum framework, which would ensure that the ambitions of the then strategic plan, which ran from 2015 to 2020, was realised, and employability played a really key role within this. The action that was sort of undertaken as part of that framework was, as you can see on there with Curriculum Refresh, all students will develop relevant professional attributes gained through meaningful work placement or experience embedded into the design, the learning and the assessment of every course. And this required all the course teams across the university to review their provision, reinterpret their curriculum, refresh their approach where required. Now, work at NTU since 2016 has developed further this understanding about assessed work-like experience with many different contexts. So as part of the current strategy, 2020 to 2025, the employability elements have been further extended, and there is now a new requirement, as you can see on there, assessed work-like experience, 8 weeks assessed work-like experience being developed in the curriculum with the aim of supporting all students in an inclusive and supportive environment. A range of learning approaches may be adopted. So for example, that could include a piece of consultancy work, industry set or employer set challenge, a placement, community engaged learning, collaborative online, international learning. The list goes on. However it's addressed, the emphasis is very much on authenticity and proximity to employers. And indeed, employers form part of the assessed work that the students undertake. Now, as many people here today will recognise, the academic curriculum is very full. Academic teaching time, the time spent in direct contact with the students is a precious resource. And as such, there can be tensions with the inclusion of yet more content, so employability content. The research and scholarship work in this area has identified that career development strategies, CDL, integrated into the curriculum as part of a degree programme can positively support graduate employability. However, the understanding around career development learning is not always universal across all the academic teams. And this is something we also experienced at NTU in the early days. So some interpretations around the 2016 refresh framework led to comments sort of including, I'll have to remove content to fit this in, or I'm not an expert in this area, or I don't have material to develop this, to deliver this. So of course, that's not a criticism, because after all, career development hasn't traditionally been part of many academic positions, but it's something that's rapidly changing, rapidly developing. So it was so important that as an employability team, we explained that employability is not just a set of attributes or skills layered on top of learning, but it is in fact a core component of the curriculum. And this can be contextualized to form an integral part of what's being taught. B, we needed to ensure that we were in a position to be able to respond appropriately with resources and be timely with the required support and the development opportunities to land this framework. And by embedding career development learning, we're addressing or aiming to address and encourage holistic student development, where students are able to develop their professional identities, engage more meaningfully with the learning opportunities offered within and outside of the university, and importantly, take ownership, drive their own capability acquisition in line with their own personal goals. So I'm going to hand back to Carla.
Thank you, Cassie. So to enable us to be able to do this in such a broad space and wide space, one of the examples of practice that we would like to share with you is an employability teaching toolkit that we created for our academic colleagues. We really do recognise that the academic colleagues are a key stakeholder in how we support our students and how we extend our reach to be able to support as many students as possible. So through the curriculum space, we wanted to provide resources and support to enable our academic colleagues to be able to add to and enhance their curriculum, add in that CDL and employability content. The initial toolkit in 2016 was our kind of phase one. That was to support our curriculum refresh. Within there, we had a whole host of different resources that academics could use with students, as well as having the pedagogy and case studies to support them. What we found over a number of years, though, as we were adding more and more content, that got quite a busy space. And the feedback that we were getting was that academics were struggling to navigate it, to understand which components to actually use within the teaching space. So phase two of the employability teaching toolkit happened in 2022. And what we've done is to review the purpose of the toolkit and using stakeholder engagement to influence the positioning of CDL and the drivers behind AWLE. What we did was consulted with our academic teams. So to bring that academic voice in, we consulted with them to find out what they needed from that space, what type of resources, the format of those resources, how they were using those resources within the curriculum space to support modules, as well as how we could support that development piece around understanding how employability and CDL actually fits in. What we've done is created a more refreshed structure and tried to find a way to support our academic colleagues to navigate that space to find what they're needing. One of the key issues was the complexity around careers and employability, CDL, and supporting people to be able to find what they needed in a fairly quick way. Another project that was happening at the same time related to the work of Dr. Doug Cole. So he delivered in the first forum a couple of weeks ago and was presenting the work that he was doing around employability redefined taxonomy. So this was an original piece of research that he completed. What we've then done is used his research-informed approach to create a simplified framework and a shared language to position whole person development, which includes CDL and employability. What we recognise is that students often struggle to make sense of employability, careers, personal development. And what we wanted to create was a very simple framework that had language and graphics that could be easily recognised and navigated by our students and academic colleagues. What we're doing is using the four lenses of our developing with NTU to scaffold the learning so that people can easily find what they need to support their own personal development, because in terms of our students, the personalisation aspect of it is very important to us. So the student sits at the centre of our developing with NTU, because we recognise that we need to celebrate what makes them unique in their wider lives and within kind of the NTU learning space. NTU also sits at the centre of that, because every single person at NTU has a responsibility to support our students. This framework is being used as part of our planning cycle. So looking at those school level plans with our academics, they're using it within module content to look at how they can map content that they're currently doing with students, so that we have this very holistic view of how we're supporting our students and enabling everyone to be able to navigate the space more easily. The underpinning of the Developing with NTU framework is that by academics engaging with it, by students engaging with it, we're actually supporting our students to develop their resilience, their self-efficacy, their identity, and that it is actively engaging in a reflective process, so that we're supporting them in that personal development, that professional development that will make them successful in life and in work. So employability services have taken the Developing with NTU and very much putting it at the heart of what we do and the outputs. So it underpins all of the outputs of employability services in terms of how we support our academic colleagues and students to navigate and consume that career development learning. So I've got three specific kind of examples that I'm talking about here. We've got our curriculum space and the curriculum content. So what we're doing is through the toolkit, we are providing those teaching and learning activities. So things like mini programs, mini modules that cover a whole host of topics around self-awareness, around CV cover letter writing, around workplace skills, job searching, effective communication. What we're doing is enabling academic teams to have access to resources that they can pick up and actually use within their curriculum. As a team, we also deliver within modules and within the curriculum. So again, through that partnership planning that we have with each school, we look at where we can add value to the learning and teaching that's already happening in that space and what we can go in and deliver. So we have careers consultants, careers coaches, and employability advisors that will go into the curriculum as part of the timetable and develop and deliver those CDL sessions to students. We're also trying to really home in and focus on that co-delivery and co-creation piece. So working with module and course teams to create and deliver activities to support that module learning, so that we can have the impact on the learning outcomes and the assessments, and also that employability is seen as an integral part of that. We've also got an employability award. This traditionally sat outside of the curriculum. What we've done this year is use that Developing with NTU framework and the 4 lenses to redefine that space. And we're now using that within the curriculum space as well. So currently we're having conversations, consulting with academic teams of how they can use that within the curriculum, how they can use the 4 lenses to map what they're doing, but also use the activities that we have created as part of the activities hub, which are endorsed CDL and employability activities that can support students. Very much the purpose here is that personalisation, achieving goals, and that reflection space. So again, we're having those conversations to enable us to ensure that the student is at the centre of what we're doing in terms of their own development. The core offer complements and supports this space. So this is through direct promotion with our students as well as our academics. We share the dates well in advance in terms of the planning cycle each year. So where we have got the core offer of how-to workshops, careers fairs, employer events, that those can be mapped to that schemes of work within that curriculum space. But also as part of that, we've got our central support. So the information, advice and guidance, we have our employability hubs that students can drop into and get support with. We have careers guidance and careers coaching so that we can support students on a more one-to-one basis as well. And again, it's ensuring that our colleagues within the curriculum know that this is available. So again, all of that sits within that toolkit space so that academics know what the service looks like and they can pick out the elements of the service to promote with their students. So to move on from this, what we're going to do is I'm going to pass over to Cassie, and she's going to provide you with an example in practice about how you can use the toolkit to actually support assessed modules. Cassie, over to you.
Thanks, Carla. So just to try and put this into context, firstly from a curriculum example, I'm going to set the scene. There's a number of things going on, but I've selected one today which hopefully will show sort of some development areas. So I've selected a geography module. So we have a BSc geography and physical geography course, and the students studying currently at level 6, which is the final year of their undergrad, they study a module that's entitled Geographical Politics, Issues and Ethics. And this module is also a synoptic module. So it draws together all the elements of learning from across their course. So everything they've learned in level 4 and level 5, and all of the sort of development work that the students have been undertaking throughout that course, we ask them to apply their learning, their research approach and their critical thinking to a current topical issue. As part of this learning, it's a really popular module because the students get to take part in a field trip every year. So actually during the COVID pandemic with lockdowns and things, the students actually did a virtual field trip, which actually went down really well with them, which we were a bit worried about because obviously it felt like they were missing out on an opportunity, but actually the virtual one did work really, really well. So the field trip they go on is very much designed to put them out in the field, no pun intended, but it's asking them to explore the relationship between humans and the environment, so related to geographical and environmental issues. This year, through the support of the organisation GeoTenerife, you can see it on the slide, then their director Sharon Backhouse, we recreated their sort of assessment and turned it into a live employer brief. So this was in line with the new requirements for the assessed work-like experience activities. It naturally led itself to this type of assignment, and Sharon was fantastic in terms of her input and her support. So the organisation actually then commissioned our students to produce a report looking at various implications of a new resort development that was happening on the island. So while the students were staying in the field trip centre on the island, they were tasked to work as a group to explore all avenues, sustainability aspects of the proposed development project that was being undertaken. This may have included the infrastructure kind of review, the environment, the local economy, various aspects of tourism, politics. And then on return, our students were then asked to work individually to produce a final report back to the organisation. So an article for them, which included social media content, exemplars of threads that they'd use. And it also asked them as a synoptic piece to draw together a reflective piece of the work, some of the ethical dimensions of that development, but also their personal reflective account. Now, we knew that their time on the island would be short. It was a week long, and therefore the preparation for these students was critical. So to give you an example in terms of the curriculum content, so within their taught sessions prior to their departure, I worked closely with the academic team, the module lead, so myself, our careers consultant, Anita, we developed preparatory workshops, and this very much focused around the teamwork. So on the slide, you can see my sort of MTA learning kit in the bottom corner. That is hyperlinked. If the links don't work, we will share those later. But I find this piece of kit very, very useful. So we were funded in the school quite a few years ago to purchase some of this experiential learning kit, and we found it really helps to develop in the curriculum activities that students, reflection, as Ian will allude to, is one of the kind of real linchpins of allowing student development. But the MTA kit for me allows me to facilitate a number of 2 to 3 hour workshops with students, but in the curriculum. So we needed to emphasize the importance of working collaboratively, but we also needed to deliver a high quality result for our students. So this would take the students through an exercise to help them understand their own approaches, the way they work as a group, their limitations, how they approach things, and how we could potentially ask them to work more collaboratively and not necessarily think individually. We also use, as you can see in the middle of the screen, a strengths profiling tool. And that's used with a company that we currently have some funding through the school, again, through a teaching and learning fund with Capfinity. And the strengths profiling tool for me really helps the students understand themselves, understand their approach, give them answers as to why they approach the work in the way they do, but also understand how to dial things up, dial things down when they work as a group. So these two things combined were put into the curriculum, and we worked with the students over a number of weeks to prepare them for their field trip. So the engagement was very high because students knew that this A was part of their assessed work, but B, they were really keen to sort of do the best they could out in industry. So we worked on all of those sort of elements. When they went back out into the field, over into Tenerife, they were then able to ensure collectively that they understood they were part of a bigger team. So very much reflecting how they'd have to work interdisciplinary in the workplace, making sure that everybody had collated that information to then bring back and then work on their own individual account. So on return, I then picked back up on the strengths profiling. We revisited their profiles as an addition in another curriculum session, which was designed specifically to support their academic submission for the personal reflective account. Now, alongside all that talk content, the resources and workshops running centrally, we were advertised to the group so they could identify areas that would again help their submission, and they would be encouraged to attend. And with the new award being rolled out, we're also now planning with the module lead to link this module for next academic year so that students can use this example, use their experience as evidence for that award. And there's going to be a specific, or there is a specific theme around sustainability. So we'll be encouraging them next year to use this experience in the curriculum towards their own personal professional development. I'm going to finish, sort of last example is a slightly different example. And this is very much around an example of how we collaborate across the university, how we share best practice, but also learn and develop our approaches. So at NTU, we have TILT, the Trent Institute Learning for Teaching, which promotes excellence in learning teaching. And since its inception in, I think, 2015, it's developed into an institution-wide community of practice to recognise scholarship of teaching and learning, share innovative practice, investigate themes in teaching and learning. There are a number of practice groups and scholarship groups which have been established, and they're open to all NTU academic and professional services staff and students. There is a supporting learning for employability practice group, which I currently co-chair with Dr. Doug Cole, and the group sits within the innovation in learning and teaching in the higher education SOTL theme. But it cuts across a number of other themes and therefore involves collaboration with other interest groups. So given the current strategic focus around the inclusion of the assessed work-like experience, the group of academics and my professional services colleagues in this group are currently in the middle of an AWLE, an assessed work-like experience series that we're hosting, which is focusing on what we've called the key ingredients. So we've had guest talks from different colleagues across a range of universities, but including case studies from existing practice at NTU, what's happening out there. Very much focusing on people's specialisms across the academic field. And the focus is very much around sharing effective practice, learning more about the approaches being undertaken, creating a support network for solving some of those wicked problems that still exist. This series is running over the next, or is running currently over the next 6 months, and every month we have a selected topic, and the resources, the talks, the materials are then collated, adapted. They go into the assets that Carla mentioned earlier around the developing with NTU. So staff are able to share expertise, videos, recordings are captured, and also we create that community of practice. That the aim is really to help support teaching and learning, but also help to shape future policy and practice and our approach at NTU. And we're definitely learning from each other in this series. So, gosh, hopefully I have managed to not lose you along the way. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour probably of everything we do, but we do hope that this has helped you to help set the scene for our approach. We've taken you on our journey as it currently is, maybe shared some examples of collaboration and ways of working, but thank you for listening. And we're very happy to answer questions, connect with anybody who wants to share their experience, learn more, or indeed teach us around their interest areas and specialisms. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. White and Ms. Campbell, for the inspiring and enlightening talk. Our next keynote speaker of the day is Dr. Ian Wilson, Senior Lecturer, Department of Psychology, Nottingham Trent University. Dr. Ian Wilson is a Senior Lecturer within the Department of NTU Psychology of NTU. He specializes in the scholarship of teaching and learning within psychology, with particular interest in employability learning and written assessments. Ian is currently working on a sabbatical in the 2022-23 academic year, which is evaluating a new model for assessing reflective writing, the synthesized model of reflection, as well as developing resources to support the teaching, learning, and assessment of reflection. His other areas of activity include leading on the Scholarship Innovation Forum for Reflective Practice and Writing in the School of Social Sciences, as well as leading support for fellowship applications to the Higher Education Academy in NTU Psychology. Ian has previous experience as course leader for the Master of Science and Postgraduate Diploma Psychology Conversion course and contributes to specialist teaching on employability-focused modules as well as occupational psychology modules. May I now invite Dr. Wilson to present on the synthesized model of reflection, a vehicle for scaffolding and assessing the employability redefined taxonomy, a pilot among psychology students. Dr. Wilson, please.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you very much for inviting me to be here to talk and speak about this model that I will be talking about as well. Hopefully that is now sharing. So thank you very much for welcoming me here and taking some time to listen to this new model of assessing reflection. So I'm going to be talking about the synthesized model of reflection as a vehicle for scaffolding and assessing the employability redefined taxonomy. So in this talk, I'm going to be providing a bit of background context as to the importance of sharing and assessing reflective assessments. We've already alluded to this in Cassie and Carla's talk, highlighting the importance of reflection. I'll then provide a very brief overview of the employability redefined taxonomy, followed by a very brief overview of the synthesized model of reflection. And then I'm going to move into specifically how I have used this model working with the level 4 students, our first year undergraduate psychology students, and then also talk about how I have worked with our level 7 masters in occupational psychology students and highlight what was different between working with our first years and second years, sorry, our master's students. And then finally, there'll be links for questions, feedback and comments, which I will happily take. So the background context. So currently in the UK and elsewhere, there is a pressure for universities to be value for money. So with the increase of costs of tuition fees and cost of living around, there is a greater pressure for students to go into high quality graduate outcome jobs where they're going to be earning more. So there's been this pressure for quite a while, and that is building as we talk. In order to be able to prepare our students, we have to embed employability learning into our curricula as highlighted in our first keynote. And what is really important is self-reflection is an essential part of all the employability models that have been currently processed, such as Dakrapool and Sewell's model in 2007. Reflection is at the very central process. In the employability redefined taxonomy, you will see that reflection is key to being able to develop all the 6 domains of the taxonomy. We have been using reflective models such as Gibbs reflective cycle, Kolb experiential learning cycle as well, to focus on a single experience to encapture in some of these holistic and synoptic assessments. However, we know that learning doesn't occur in a single experience. It takes time. It takes multiple experiences for you to be able to learn and engage and be able to apply what you have learned into different settings. So there's a challenge around focusing on a single assessment. In addition, there's not really much scope with an assessment focused on a single experience, which is usually experienced in the past, for longitudinal reflection. So Corker and Holland highlighted the importance of being able to engage in an experience, but then being able to reflect upon that and engage in a similar experience again to see how they've learned and developed in the future. So there's no scope for longitudinal in models such as Gibbs. And at the moment, we're not seeing very much change in the graduate outcomes, which is one of our metrics that we use to assess success for our graduates, and therefore something's not quite going as we hoped with our reflective assessments. So one of the models which is focused around holistic development, which is essential, I think is really important, is the employability redefined taxonomy, which Doug Cole has developed. And there are 6 domains. These are knowledge, intrapersonal and interpersonal learning, experience and identity, underpinned by resilience and self-efficacy. All of these are wrapped within life-wide learning, which is all the learning that occurs in formal settings, as well as all of the informal settings, such as family life experiences, sport roles, and things outside of formal settings, which can be brought into the formal setting. There is also lifelong learning. This is the learning that takes time and takes place over time, which we may be more familiar with. So all of these components help develop the individual. So here is the synthesized model of reflection. To start with, to try and capture all of these aspects, there needs to be a self-evaluation. This is focusing on the baseline, understanding where you are to start with so that you've got a point to be able to progress. If you've got an idea of a career direction or roles that you'd be interested in, it helps identify what may be relevant. You can identify your strengths, but also your development needs. Development needs will then inform goals, which can be set proactively. Those goals will then lead into stage 2, which will focus on capturing multiple experiences. Those goals will inform what experiences will be engaged with and how they're going to be the most appropriate to answering those goals. It's important then to bring those different experiences together. So first, there is a stage of synthesized analysis, which is focused on the individual. What was their role? What have they learned? What have they done in that in those experiences? What are their capabilities? What were they consistent at? What were they able to demonstrate success and maybe understand where they were not successful? But that's not all. It's important to understand the context in which those experiences occurred, because context may enable barriers. There might be enablers which may promote success or be a barrier to success in those experiences. So it's not just down to the individual, but the context as well. Once the evaluation has been completed, it's important to go into the final stage, which is revisiting that self-evaluation to assess, have the goals been achieved? Has there been progress being made? Even if a goal has not been achieved, it's possible that progress has been made. So it enables our students to build their confidence and demonstrate that they are still progressing, even if they have not successfully achieved the goal. With this, they will be able to identify new development needs, which will then loop back round to inform the goals again and start the process again. So that is the synthesized model of reflection, or SMORE in brief. So how has this been applied with the taxonomy? Well, the taxonomy provides a really clear framework in terms of what students can reflect upon. So in stage 1, those 6 domains are being used to provide a framework for our students to identify what knowledge do they have now, what knowledge do they want to gain, what knowledge are they interested in applying in the future, what experiences have they brought to their undergraduate degree, their postgraduate degree so far, what are the sorts of experiences that they want to engage in, what is fulfilling for them, what is meaningful. What sort of inter and intrapersonal learning have they already engaged with? What is it that they enjoy doing? What would they like to continue doing because of that enjoyment? And then all of this ties into that identity aspect, thinking, who are you? Who do you want to be? And how can you work towards being your best self? All of this is then supported with self-efficacy and resilience to build that holistic development. So using the taxonomy as a clear framework gives students clear guidance on what to reflect upon in their self-evaluation. The taxonomy is also applied in the second stage of the reflective model, in terms of, because there are multiple experiences that can be captured within this assessment, it's possible to capture life-wide experiences. So it enables and gives our students flexibility to think about looking outside of their university experience to identify where are they engaging in learning experiences, where are they developing themselves more holistically, as opposed to just thinking about how are they developing with their contents and applying the content from their course. So there's life-wide experiences to bring what they're doing outside of university into their university assessments. There is also scope for the lifelong learning, which is this example at the bottom, where they might be able to engage in an experience, reflect upon that experience, and then engage in that experience again. An example that I give to my students is they may have 2 presentation assessments and thinking about how do they present to an audience. And they have one midway through their year and one at the end of the year. So how have they developed between those 2 presentations? How can they reflect on that lifelong learning? If we're looking at a synoptic assessment in our final year students, how have they captured that lifelong learning from their first, second and third years to demonstrate that development over time? So there's flexibility here for our students to take ownership about what it is that they are focusing upon, what is important to them, whilst also meeting the learning outcomes. And then the final stage, which I've really used the taxonomy, is going back to that whole person evaluation, thinking about how have you developed, how can this build your self-efficacy and resilience, because we're talking about, have you worked towards your goal, how have you progressed, demonstrate the success that you have. Even if you have not completed your goal, you're still making progress and demonstrating development, you're moving forwards. It may be that you've not successfully achieved your goal because you were too ambitious with that goal, and given another 2 or 3 months, you will achieve that goal. It may be that you achieve that goal really easily and think, actually, looking at this, you need to challenge yourself more. You need to push yourself a little bit further because that goal is a bit easy. Let's try and next time when we set goals, make that a little bit more difficult to push and develop yourself. So there's a process of not only learning about yourself, but also learning about the goals that you can set for yourself to move forward. So there is the encouragement for students to be proactive, but also for them to really take ownership of their learning, really take ownership of the focus around that, but learn about how they learn as well. So this is how I've structured the taxonomy and applied this into the assessments. So now I'm going to specifically talk about an example of where we use this with our level 4 first year undergraduate psychology students. So the SMORE was used to structure the assessment for what students should reflect upon. And this was an example of one of the work-like experience initiatives that has been integrated into the psychology curricula that Cassie and Carla were talking about in Keynote 1. Here we're talking about how do we capture the learning from the assessed work-life experience. So it was a 1,500 word portfolio where they captured their self-evaluation, they captured their experience, and then they re-evaluated themselves to focus in the future. Because 1,500 words is not a lot of words for them to capture all of the aspects, we used a simplified version of the SMAW, and I'll show you that on the next slide. In terms of the teaching and learning to support and scaffold and align with the assessment, there were activities that were co-created between myself, the module team, and the employability teams to be able for us to bring together all of our priorities in terms of what we needed to capture with the assessed work-life experience, what needed to be captured in terms of the content that needed to be provided from the module, as well as how do you align and scaffold the support for our students to be able to complete the assessments. So all the content was co-created between ourselves as a team. And one of the things that was used was a workbook which guided students through the process of engaging in reflection. And the workbook was a large workbook designed to be worked through over 10 weeks and captured some of the aspects which would support the assessment, but would support reflection more broadly so they can think about their development outside of assessment. If a student is just thinking about completing their assessment only, they've missed the key message of what reflection is about. So the workbook really designed to encourage them to think beyond their assessment. It also gave them the chance to work through the process independently because they didn't fully require the staff member to be directly teaching them process, because there was short bite-sized manageable chunks of information which then gave them an activity to practice this. If they then had questions, they could go to their personal tutor, and the tutors were given guidance for all of the activities so that they could answer the questions that they were provided. So training and guides were provided for staff. And one of the key things that we built this off was our research methods learning. So within psychology, our students are provided lots of research methods, skills and learning. Our staff are comfortable with research methods and learning. So even if they were not comfortable with teaching reflection, they've got a concrete example of learning which they are confident with, which they could apply. So the first stage with the self-evaluation is like a literature review in the introduction of a report, where identifying the previous knowledge, identifying the gaps in the literature, and then proposing a hypothesis or research question at the end, similar to identifying your own strengths, identifying your development needs, and then setting goals for yourself. Similar to methods, the methods need to be appropriate to answer the hypothesis and research question. The experiences need to be appropriate to address the development goals that have been set. In terms of making sense of the data, once the experiences have been engaged with, you need to make sense of those experiences, look for the patterns, identify what has been learnt, draw conclusions, similar to the results section of a report. And then finally, going back to the previous literature in the discussion to contextualize those findings in relation to the previous literature. We're going back to the self-evaluation and using what we've learned to go back to that previous understanding to see how we've progressed, similar to how research has progressed overall. So this staff training provided quite a bit of confidence with approaching reflection. Also used a survey to capture development over time. I've captured the early stage. I will be capturing the follow-up stage in May. So hopefully in the near future, I'll be reporting some of the findings. I've also started looking at the quality of some of the assessments being submitted to have a look at the quality of how they've engaged with this process. So this is the simplified assessment that we had. We only had a single experience which the students reflected upon. So they're not synthesizing, they're not trying to capture multiple experiences, but they're still going through that process of the self-evaluation at the start and the end to get them thinking proactively. We also reduced the number of areas that they focused upon. So we didn't ask them to focus on resilience and self-efficacy. We'll be building that in as we progress. So level 5, they'll start thinking about multiple experiences. At level 6, they'll be really synthesizing and thinking about the context as well. So what was different with our level 7 course? Well, the master's students were more competent with reflection. They'd already had 3 years of reflective assessments from their undergraduate degree. So they were in a better position. What I did was I co-created a workbook, and I'm still co-creating this with the students to make sure that it really supports what it is that they're learning. So here's the example. So we've got an example of some of the information that is in the slide. The text is too small. I'm able to share this resource on the National Teaching Repository that's going to be coming up. So do have a look at the National Teaching Repository resources if you're interested in this particular model. So there's information for students to engage with. There's space for them to make notes in the workshops that are provided. The workshops are already on the National Teaching Repository. The workbook will follow. But also there are activities for them to engage with, either independently, or we encourage them to reflect with each other as well, as critical friends, to enhance the critical reflection process. So there are these activities that are built in. In addition, the assessment was did not have a word limit. They had as many words as they wished to capture all of their experiences, and they had to capture 10 experiences across their course. In addition, they also had to demonstrate how they met the professional standards of the occupational psychology career development, as well as all of the 6 domains of the employability taxonomy, employability redefined taxonomy. So it's making it very relevant to the career direction that they are training towards. So this was what was different with the level 7 course. So to conclude, the SMART is a proactive longitudinal model of assessing reflection. It supports development over time and allows students to capture their learning outside of their experiences. The employability redefined taxonomy provides an excellent framework so that students know what to reflect upon. Moving forwards within NTU, we're going to be using the developing with NTU framework so that it maps onto, and we've got consistent language with employability services, with academics, so everyone is talking the same language, so we're all clear, because they're both based on the employability redefined taxonomy. Activities can be designed to across the module to guide the learners through the process. So it's longitudinal. It's not just a here's one session. It's one thing that needs to be integrated over time to guide the students through the process as they go along. This is in its infancy, so I'm in the middle of creating resources. There may be developments, there may be ideas that need changing to be more applicable to your learners. So it's a flexible model, but this is its first iteration, its first design. And then there's going to be resources on the National Teaching Repository, and also if you'd like to see specifically my resources, you can follow the link to my profile there. Acknowledgements. So it was an NTU psychology funded scholarship. My research mentors were Professor Julie Hume, Dr. Richard Remedios, and Professor Maria Karonika Murray. Thank you also to my collaborators, Dr. Doug Cole, the occupational psychology team, and the level 4 work-like experience teams there. Here are my references, and thank you very much for your time. And if you have questions, my email is there, and I'm also on Twitter if you'd like to provide any feedback or comments or questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson, for your stimulating and inspiring talk. Our next keynote speaker of the day is Dr. Lancy Pang, Associate Professor of Practice, Department of Counseling and Psychology, Hong Kong Shu Yan University. Dr. Lancy Pang is currently part-time Associate Professor of Practice in the Department of Counseling and Psychology in Hong Kong Shu Yan University and maintains a private practice specializing in postmodern career counseling. Dr. Pang serves as the Director of the Doctor of Psychology in Counseling Psychology program and is the founding director of the Practice-Based Evidence Lab in Hong Kong Shu Yan University, where she was also involved in the preparation and launching of the first and only Masters of Social Sciences in Counseling Psychology program in Hong Kong and was the first assistant director of the program. Dr. Pang received her bachelor's degree in psychology and also master's and PhD degrees in counseling psychology from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. Dr. Pang's clinical and research interests include strengths-based narrative career counseling and assessment, career and identity development of college students, midlife adults, and ethnic minorities, change process in psychotherapy and clinical supervision, psycholinguistic phenomenology in psychotherapy encounters, indigenization of multicultural counseling training, and experiential training in psychotherapy. Dr. Pang has designed and delivered a series of career workshops for international students in the United States, taught vocational psychology and counseling courses at the bachelor's and master's levels, and been invited to offer strength-based narrative career workshops for university students at various academic institutions in Hong Kong. May I now invite Dr. Pang to present on Building an Unseen Anchor, strength-based narrative career counseling for university students. Dr. Pang, please.
Thank you for the introduction. Okay, can you all see the PowerPoint? Okay, yes, that's great. Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation from the organizing parties. It is my pleasure to join and share in this forum today. As a counseling psychologist trained in the US, working with college students there and in Hong Kong through career counseling has been one of my most rewarding experiences in my career. So what I'm going to share today is informed by my own practice at the university and community settings, as well as my teaching career counseling at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. So let's start with the what. What is the current and emerging phenomenon in the work world? We may cognitively know that the work world keeps changing in its nature, structure, and demographics. Yet I think we all couldn't agree more with what this male client says in this comment to his therapist. My profession has probably been transformed again just since we started this session. The speed of change is escalating, and probably we even have difficulty to catch up with the speed of it, particularly after what we have gone through during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the work world is likely to have another disruptive change with the rapid rise of AI recently. This report was just released about a month ago. You might have read it already. What I would like to point out though is that Among these top 4 at-risk occupations like law, engineering, finance, are considered the stable and prestigious occupations in the mainstream Hong Kong culture. And they have been dream jobs for many young people. So what are the implications for higher education and career services for college students nowadays in this emerging context? Things keep changing, occupations change. Some occupation fell, drift away, and some occupation arise. What we have been providing traditionally, including the approach, the assessment, the occupational handbook dictionary, are we able to catch up with this change? How can we better support our college students? Let's understand more about the career phenomenon in the college student population. Feeling lost is the expression I hear a lot from college students in the career counseling room. And what they are trying to convey to me is that they feel lost, stuck in the tension of opposites. For example, the tension between going along or against the stream, which then imply a battle of others or family expectations versus personal desires. And recently, the tension between staying or leaving has been prominent in the college student population in Hong Kong. So based on my clinical observation and analysis, in fact, what underneath their feeling lost in the tension lies in an important yet unexamined identity question. Who am I? And who do I want to become? Without answers to these identity questions, paralyzing fear, helplessness, and even hopelessness leading to major depression will rise in them as they navigate in this dynamically changing and increasingly unsettling seas of career. As a result, making a satisfactory career choice is not only a rational or intellectual act, but also an emotional and psychological process involving the whole person. The strengths-based narrative career counseling model fills the gap that traditional career development services are limited in meeting the dynamic and emerging career needs of college students in the current and emerging context, like the linear matching to define jobs, expecting work and emotion as separate, focusing on skills, assessment results based on external experts, putting oftentimes students on a passive role in their career decision making. So what I'm going to elaborate on is how this strength-based narrative career counseling model can address what is going on in our current work world. These are the basic theoretical assumptions of this model. First of all, career is very personal. Just think about how much time we dedicated in our work, in our studies, and how often we try to make sense of what we are doing. This is all about a meaning-making process. Second, in this model, we emphasize that self-understanding is a process rather than a product provided by an external expert through paper pencil tests or computer assessment that items are already set for them. In fact, human beings are storytellers. we all know how to tell stories. And the story that we chose, whether consciously or unconsciously, to live in are the lens through which we see the world. And people do tell stories that they themselves need or want to hear. And from a constructivist perspective, identity is linguistically and socially constructed. It is fluid, therefore allow for reconstruction. And this is a very important part of this model, as most of the career counseling work is built upon this theoretical assumption of identity. You may now understand more that career problems and career decisions are indeed emotionally laden and cannot be separated from mental health issues. There are different understandings about the term strength. For this model, we define that strength is reflected already in the struggles or problems that clients seek to resolve. Strength is not something that's out there to be found. Strength is already in the problems that's waiting to be seen. Therefore, career themes, as well as solutions to the problems specifically, are already embedded in clients' personal day-to-day stories. So the role of a career counselor, adopting this model, is to provide a secure and accepting therapeutic environment to enable the narratability of client. And through the narrating process, it helps the client to turn tension into intention. And through deconstruction of emotional tension, help client to develop sense of agency and also career adaptability. But due to the limited time, the deconstruction of emotional tension cannot be the focus for this presentation, as it involves the technicality of the counseling techniques. Nevertheless, I would like to spend a little bit more time on strength-based career narrative, particularly on the operationalization of strength in this model. There are different translations for the term strength in Chinese. The one that I use for this model, 安性, is to emphasize that strength is not about power. 韌力, or similar translation, 抗逆力, or not even excellence, 優勢或強項. Strength in this model is about internal resources that are unique and specific to each and individual person. So let me give a few examples from my own cases to illustrate how a person's strength is implied in the narration of struggle and the solution transparent in the narrating process. So oftentimes I would invite my client to share a time when they got lost or stuck in somewhere. And I remember one of the clients shared a time that he was supposed to go somewhere for something, but he got lost. At that time, he decided to return to the starting point, ask around, and then keep going until he found a place. And he realized that this time was faster than the first time he got lost. I'm sure when you hear that, you already vividly see this client portrait of strength, which has layers and dimensions, and even a clear process steps of how he exercised his strength, how he coped with difficulties, how he solved his problems. Instead of a generic term saying that he is persistent. Yes, he has this persistent quality, but every one of us persists in our own unique way. His way of persistence has these very specific details. His strength has its thickness. There's another client also sharing with me her favorite characters in a movie. As she was describing her favorite character, and then I asked her, okay, so what she experienced, this character in the movie, and then she was describing what kind of things that she encountered, what's been through, and all of a sudden it dawned on her, and she shared with me that, you know what, I just provided a solution for myself without realizing it. So you can see that using their own stories, the solution is already transparent to them that they cannot even deny or neglect. Strength can easily be missed or omitted in the narration if we are not intentionally or skillfully listen for strength. One of a client also describing that she was going to somewhere else. While she was there, she was able to sense something wrong. Intentional listening for strength. Her unique strength is the ability to sense something wrong. And this comic happened to match my client's narrative. In this comic, the HR manager apparently was surprised that this applicant put an ability to smell fear as a quality and listed on his resume. But in my teaching career counseling courses at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, I've often invited my students to experience the strength-based narrative. And through this, like my clients, they all develop a new language of strength, not generic terms anymore. And how they use this new language of strength in their resume as well as in their job interviews. You can already see that they could stand out among the applicants. This process, by having a new language of strength, help them to develop a new narrative identity. It is also a process for the clients and even my students to learn how to own their strength and be willing to let their strengths known. The process of narrating and then hearing back their told stories in the career counseling process also brings self-validation and courage from within. Traditional counseling in general tends to focus on having the therapist to validate client. It works in a certain way to a certain extent. It's not as much as the client himself or herself validating the self on themselves. So the narrating process, because it's using their own personal stories, we are just a facilitator to assist them seeing the strength on their own and having all this awareness on their own. So that when they reflect on this process, I remember one of the clients shared with me that I no longer focus on what I'm not. I now see the other parts of me that I have been neglected. That is the self-validation. The client has begun to accept who he or she is. Another client also shared with me this moment I still remember vividly during the session at this stage of career counseling is right or wrong decision is now defined by me. And she reflected further. I think the reason for this change is that I became more aware of what kind of a person I want to become. You can sense that tone of voice is so certain and also have that sense of autonomy because she found the answer to the important identity question. At this stage, also clients would demonstrate self-initiated behaviors. For example, they will want to, and even started already, to bring their strength into full play. One client would say that I want to work harder and learn more in order to be the kind of person I want to become. Because through that process, having that new language of strength, going through this self-validation of narrative identity, again, he found the answer to the important identity question. He now has a genuine purpose and meaning for why he wants to work and learn more. Instead of, I know that I have to study. I just feel that I have to, or I should work harder or learn more. It's coming from his own genuine desire because this is consistent of what he's going to become. So with this new narrative identity, the client will have a new lens, not only to see himself or herself, but also seeing new career and life possibilities. A client shared that where we explore what happened next for him. And he shared that he would seriously consider the possibility of an occupation that he had never imagined or even thought about before, because that was so-called the old self. It's never been reconstructed. So now after it's reconstructed, instead of he only had option A or B, that dichotomous that created the tension, all of a sudden there's an option C happening. So this gives a lot of sense of relief to a lot of clients. They are able to find a way out of this tension of opposites. So a lot of clients will have reported a significant decrease in their fear and anxiety. Not only that, the purpose is not killing off fear and anxiety, because it's there. And feeling has all meaning. Feeling has all meanings to it. The important part is they feel more at ease and less resistant to the uncertainty. For example, feeling more okay with the ambiguity surrounding them. I have clients saying that because of that, she feels that she is more able to stand on her own feet now. And this phrase, standing on her own feet, is actually illustrating how this model has helped the client eventually form a grounded sense of self. And this grounded sense of self is the unseen anchor symbolically within the client. I'm not saying that developing skills or talents are not important. They remain important. But through this career counseling model with the strength-based narrative, I feel that, and hopefully you begin to get a taste of it, that there's no substitute for a grounded sense of identity. Because for that identity, people can weather the seas and storms of career uncertainty, just like the picture shows on the screen, and be able to adapt to the changing climate and landscape. And that's grounded sense of identity, where in turn helps the client, as I just illustrate with some example, have an increase in sense of agency, autonomy, being a lot more control in the seemingly uncontrollable ocean. That certainty within herself and himself, not based upon whether it is certain outside the world. So you can already feel that there's a lot of power inside them already. And most importantly, having the courage to take personal responsibility, to act, to choose, despite being uncertain in this unsettling world. I think this is true courage. And I've seen a lot of all these changes in all these young people in the university, as well as in the community settings. And the unique anchor is unique to each and every individual, each and every individual client. So I would like to end this presentation with this question to all of you, even though I don't see the audience, but I would like to leave this question to you all. What does your unseen anchor look like? Maybe you already have some images in your mind, maybe more, maybe not. Maybe it's emerging, it's coming later. But the important point I would like to find out is about how do I answer this question? And what does this question and answer mean to me? I understand that there will be no Q&A or interaction time, but if you have an interest in my work and would like to have some exchange of thoughts, ideas, and even experiences, you can reach me through this email. I know that there will be actually their staff to take in questions, so they will email me if you have any question, any comment about today's presentation. And I will receive them and do my best to get back to you. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation today, and thank you so much for your time here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pang. Thank you very much for your sharing and your professional knowledge and expertise about narrative with us. Thank you so much. So we have now come to the end of Forum 2, okay? And I want to express a big thank you and appreciation to our speakers, Ms. Kathy White, Ms. Carla Campbell, Dr. Ian Wilson, and Dr. Lancy Pang for taking the time to share your invaluable insights and perspectives on practice sharing about pedagogies and working with students. And we hope the audience around the world enjoyed the experience as much as we did. On behalf of Hong Kong Metropolitan University, thank you all again for your enthusiastic support and contribution to the event. We look forward to seeing all of you again in Forum 3, which will be held on the 8th of June. And we will have Dr. Cecilia Chan from the University of Hong Kong and Professor Julie Him from NTU to share with us their applied research related to supporting graduates for the future. We wish everyone a pleasant day and evening. So see you in June. Thank you.